Hello, hello, Hubert. Hubert Abt. You are based in Budapest, and you are the CEO and founder of New Work. So, New Work is a co-working brand and with a network in five countries in Central Europe. I read just a couple of days ago that you were the biggest transaction in Gdańsk, Poland, recently on the first quarter in terms of real estate take-up. And the idea was indeed to have a conversation with you to let us know a little bit more about New York, also how you were addressing the current situation with the COVID crisis, but also take your vision of the growth of co-working in general, and especially as we just discussed before the recording about how you see also shopping centers becoming also partners in the co-working story. And maybe let's start with introducing you and hear more about what New Work is.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, I'm in the industry for 35 plus years. That means I was working in the brokerage, in the development, in the financial engineering. When I got the attention after 2008 toward services, a little bit less exciting, I would say, than developments, but much more stable and a little bit more work to do until you make it up and running. And then we saw this model as that time serviced offices, which we picked up and started that to implement in CEE. As the first lease was ready to sign in Budapest, it was Budapest. That was not a particular pick. It could have been Prague or Warsaw as well.
So when was it? Which year?
It was the end of 2012, something like that. And we kept our activities in land banking and developments. However, this service concept picked up more and more and more. And the time then proved that it's very successful, which then based on that, I decided to move from Warsaw to Budapest and doing only serviced offices. When we grow then here to 8 centers in Budapest, then we decided to make that international, and that was then the time to change the company to from a limited company into a company with stocks. That means now it's basically a company on shares and inviting investors. And as we speak today, we are operating in 5 countries. With roughly 75,000 square meter all in, and we intend to do much more. However, due to the COVID-19 disruption of the markets, we will allocate our portfolio in the biggest market in Poland, which is about 11 million square meter of office. And then the second one will be Budapest with 3.5 million, Czech Republic, Prague with 3.5 million. So altogether with then Bucharest gives us 20 million. We will not do for now Ukraine because it's too unsecure for us as we need to have a certain scale of economics and square meters.
So to remind to remind us, the 5 countries are Hungary, Czech Republic, Poland, Romania, and just Ukraine, as you mentioned, was.
Yes, okay. Yes. Yeah, so the company now employs roughly 100 employees. Was something, of course, we had layoffs due to the crisis as well. But at the same time, we managed to close a Series B capital increase just 4 weeks ago. So basically in the worst time of the capital markets ever, but we managed. And now as we speak, we're just starting for capital increase Series C. Why we do that? We think and strongly believe that the potential of shared economy towards offices, name it flex office or workspace solutions, gets a significant trigger due to the crisis or whatever you call it.
Would you
to
say that
the
the success of the capital increase is also due to the fact that your investors are making the same assumption?
I would say so, yes. I mean, fair enough. The valuation of all such companies like New Work is basically a fraction of the valuation it was before WeWork imploded in September last year.
Yeah.
And this together with the fact that we expect 200 to 300% increase in demand in flex solutions for the next 2-3 years makes sense now for investors to consider to invest in companies like New Work.
Due to the COVID, or because it was the trend that you were already seeing, or they were already seeing back then?
No, I mean, the trend is clear. The trend is driven by shared economy and digitalization.
Yeah.
But COVID is a turbo booster.
Okay.
So what would usually happen in 3 to 5 years' time happens now in 3 months.
Yeah.
That's the fact.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
now it's only a question how fast the landlords or the industry will anticipate the demand of the tenants because they're driving the industry. But as I said, we're expecting in the part of the world we are active in the CEE countries. We only have between 2.5% and 4 or 5% max stock in flex, and we all know the prediction is 20 above.
Yeah.
So that gives enough room for improvement, would say so. And as we are, it depends which statistic you read. Let's say we are the top 3 or the top 5 or the top 2. It depends players in the markets. I guess we have a pretty good starting point to gain more market shares. And this is why we raise now capital, even so we don't need it because there is nothing to develop these days, but it will come soon.
And the fact that you're independent, is it an advantage to you? Because we know also that a lot of coworking brands now are supported by either property company or other kind of players. To what extent does it plays out also for you, the fact that you are an independent operator?
Well, the fact that we are independent has an advantage and a disadvantage. You get the pain on your own, but you also, once you gain, then you celebrate with your team, right? That's clear. I think if you are a part of a developer, you always have conflict of interest because the developer needs to operate first and foremost his new developments. And it's not so much where is the location, how big is the space. You can't make a cherry picking portfolio, which we basically can do. And there is so much money if you go to Skanska or Hubert Abt or Echo Invest in this part of the world, drives the interest of the company above the interest of the operator, that you are a tool from the developer's perspective to make either a signature service or to fill up empty space or to be an incubator, whatever it is. And the main advantage to be independent is that you can develop products which you really think are needed into the market without asking third parties. I guess this is the biggest advantage on it.
Okay.
We don't know what the future brings. Very clear that all the big landlords need to consider such kind of services, and either you build it or you buy it. So it can be that somebody knocks the door of New Work and say, hey guys, in this part of the world, we want to cooperate with you. And next year we will be part of a big corporation as well. Nobody knows that. But for now, we are owned by the management and are completely independent.
Is there an advantage as well as of being in this area in Central Europe as you are? We had the Coworking Europe conference last year in Warsaw, so we figured out that indeed a lot of things were happening there. They were leapfrogging some of the development other countries went through in the beginning, so they could escape some of the pain. But is there still an advantage for you to be in this area, also where there is still a lot of construction ongoing,
Yeah,
which
I
is
mean,
not necessarily the case elsewhere?
when I'm sitting with GRI Office Club in London and discussing with colleagues from France, from Spain, from Lisbon, from wherever, or England, potential of CEE markets, that makes them loving, because if I'm sitting in Paris, I have 4 times more office space than we have in four countries, right? Or you're sitting in Frankfurt in Germany, that has, I guess, above 12 million alone, just one city. So the potential there is much higher, very clear. But that was a choice of design that we said we do not have the power financially to compete with IWG in England or in London or in the US. So why should we do that, or that time with WeWork? Let's do the countries we know. I'm working in for 20 years, whatever. And we have the connections, and you have mostly the same owners in all these countries as well. So if you speak to a German union investor, DECA, or Immo Finanz, CI Immo, they are all the same owners in all the countries.
Yeah.
So you have synergies here. Of course, you have 5 jurisdictions, 5 currencies. Everything is times 5, right? You have to fly at least 1 hour from one part to the other. But as I said, I guess we are now, since WeWork is imploding, number 2 in the market. We could not be number 2 in the market in Great Britain, because there is the Blackstone Group and all these guys, much more bigger, 10 times bigger than we. So we feel comfortable in these markets, and we intend to stay in these markets and don't want to grow to the west. However, again, as I said, if there is an investor and says, okay, we consider and invest in New York, but you have to take care on our portfolio in other parts of the world, then we would do it, of course.
I see. And what about the positioning of New York? Is it do you cultivate a certain identity, trying to accommodate and cater some specific kind of profiles, or is it just kind of, let's say, standard service or standard product that you try to spread out?
Well, we grew up as serviced office providers like Regis. That's the most comparable product. We tried a bit in this co-working sector as well in Kiev, in the shopping mall. But then with the conversion from the company, from a LTD to a company in shares, we rebranded and then focused on corporates only. However, still we have approximately 50% of our clients are pure flex office clients, serviced office clients. This will change over the path of the time, especially now also with the new product, managing space on behalf of the landlord, space as a service. It's getting more and more and more corporate clients. This is our direction. So if I would have a wish, I would say 80% of the space, or 90% we would lease towards corporates, and 10 or 15% to SMEs. You need to have this 10-15% anyway to keep the flexibility. But this is our strength, or our positioning goes towards managing space for corporate clients.
Okay, so is it also a direction that is it the same direction as WeWork took at a certain moment, for instance, when they started to become more and more facility manager for some companies, as opposed to?
I mean, they had these spaces, of course, just of the poor size of WeWork at that time, but they also had a lot of community management, accelerating business, business mixers, co-working spaces. We don't have all that stuff. I mean, we are much more lean in the management structure. If we're doing 2 events in a center a year, that's all. I mean, that's already maybe only in the city 2 a year. We don't have this community stuff. If somebody wants to have a co-work, we send them to the co-worker. If somebody wants to have a hot desk, we send him to the guys. Of course, now with the commercialization of common areas for entire office hubs or for the entire building, we will have more of these hot desk areas next to the meeting and conference areas in the ground floors. but that's mostly already for clients which signing in already with new work. But it's not the community stuff, you know, it's just that you can use the space multi-location wise and the services. That's a completely different approach.
Okay.
For sure, you can use 80% of the WeWork space and convert it now. The only problem is mostly open space. And what I recently learned in London, you know, we're talking about the 6 feet offices now, which Cushman brought into the market. And in London, it's 60% of the space or 60% of the workforce can't come back to the floors when they keep these 6 feet rules. So only a third of the workforce can come back because they're sitting so tight already in these high, very expensive spaces that only a few people come back, while we always had 4 to 5 square meter net, means 8 to 10 square meter GLA in our layouts towards our tenants. We didn't have these 10 floor plans. And this is now obviously an advantage. And we only have about 15% open space. The rest are dedicated offices, private offices, which is also an advantage these days.
With the discussion with Karina Krea from Kinaps last week, she was explaining that it could be less of a big deal, not that much of a big deal, due to the fact that as people for the moment anyway are not commuting because of the same restrictions in terms of physical distancing, that at the end of the day, it would match somehow the needs, the space needs that are you know, showing as the what is actually needed in those space for the moment. And do you see that as well, that anyway that maybe just 20% or 30% of your tenants are showing up in your space, and that at the end of the day, good to have this social distancing and adapting the layout in order for that, but the friction could be not as high as we think, due to the fact that people still prefer to work from home for the moment.
No, I mean, the utilization rate in the office centers is still only 10 to 20% max today. And if it comes back to normal, it only would be 60, 70%, because every company will change their organization structure in a way that they circulate, or they have home office or stuff like that. That's for sure. So just because of the fact that social distancing comes in, at least when you only have 30% of efficiency losses, this you can drive easily with work from home. But 60-70% in the city of London, that's a completely different stuff. But the demand towards flex is not coming from social distancing or that people needing more space now. The demand for flex workspace solution comes because companies don't have cash for initial investments, which they always need for regular space. And as nobody can predict the future and the old business plan goes to the dump, nobody signs long-term liabilities. That's the driver for flex. It's not that people now need to have social distancing. This is over as soon we have a better crisis management all over Europe with much more information. Maybe we find out that we all had the virus already, and it's just, you know, a game of fear now. Or somebody comes up and say, okay, guys, there is a vaccination, and then it's done with the social distancing, right? So we will come back to the old floor plan soon because it's needed to save money. That's not a driver for flex at all.
You think that there is no way back now? That now that people have tasted it more and more, also with home working, that's this, as you said, there was this acceleration of adoption, which is confirming a trend which was already there, but not. We're just seeing it as a catalyst of this transformation.
It's only a trigger. It's not the willingness to be successful these days. It's the ability to adapt changes. It's not
What?
like Nokia was saying, oh no, we don't like smartphones anymore, right? It's
Yeah.
much more, if you have a cab company, either you cooperate with Uber or you're going out of business.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What about, to come back on that, we briefly mentioned before the interview satellite officing. The fact that indeed we saw also this trend of less commute, the need to walk closer to the home, or to offer employees the opportunity to walk closer from the home. Are you working on that specifically? Is it
Yeah.
something that you expect seeing in the future? What
Funny
can you
enough,
tell
we
us?
had the concept already last year,
Mm-hmm.
but we put it in the drawer because I was not bold enough or brave enough to launch it.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh my gosh, if I do that, there was some concepts in New York, in US, they utilized restaurants
Yeah.
for workspace, which was
Yeah.
not used during the day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And,
Company
and
has been bought, by the way.
yeah. It's bought, and now okay, social distancing again, but let's go back to a kind of normal world. It comes up, but what I'm absolutely convinced about is that if the headquarter has a space, let's say for 20 euro somewhere downtown, and they need to make a decision to extend, let's say they are on 10,000 square meters, first of all, they will say for the 5,000 we sign maybe a long term, but the other 5,000 we want to have a flex solution. And maybe they also say for the 2,000 of the 5,000 flex, we want to have the possibility coming with a membership card that our guys on Monday and Fridays don't have to commute anymore. They can work in different offices surrounding the city, these satellite offices. But we need to have the same corporate standards there, all the services and so on. And this is what we believe is a strong argument for the satellite offices, because very clear, people are used now to the comfort of not commuting.
Yeah.
And if you want to gain the talents in the future, you have to offer them such a kind of solution.
But it means to multiply the offering by 10 or 50 in the coming years in order to address this demand with small spaces. We know how hard it is also to make break even when you are too small space. How do you see the handling of that? We had the discussion also with another expert in hotels. They were thinking that actually the co-working offering will grow through 3 and 4 stars hotel in the smaller towns, who are going to do what you were mentioning about the restaurants, that the lobby would be converted into a co-working spaces in order to increase the offering quite rapidly.
Yeah, that's true. We worked for such concept for Radisson in Bucharest as well. Developed such a concept. That's for sure coming. Though the utilization rate of the lobby areas in the hotels will be more and more used for head desk. That's clear. But that has very strict limits, because you still don't want to have everybody in the hotel lobby.
Yeah.
So who is controlling the access? Then you want to do a bit of F&B revenues there. That's not so easy, but it's coming as a trend, that's for sure. But we, for example, going for bigger scales. That means we do not want to operate space less than 3,000 square meter anymore. So we are really talking about office hubs between 3 and 10,000 square meters as an integrative part of new developments. Of course, when we're talking about semi-use and redevelopments, then maybe we have to adjust our expectations to the building as it is. And we can't go with these big scales, and then we only have 2,000 square meters, but that's the minimum. I personally think that all the small co-workers less than 1,000 square meters will not be able to survive sustainable.
Why? Can you elaborate?
Because there is no scale of economics in it. I mean, you can make it 24/7 access with zero service, but then the community is gone, and then you can sit everywhere.
Yeah.
Then you can sit in airport lounge, right? So what drives the co-working is the community fact and accelerator fact. and that needs to have a proactive management. We needed the same amount or even more headcounts to manage 1,500 square meter co-working, which I can manage 4,500 square meter corporate space. And that's the problem, right? So it's the same salary and the income, the break even on above 85 or 90%. Yes, there is a higher profit potential, but who has it? We know that 50% or 70% of the co-workers are not profitable on the long shot, and they will not exist anymore. It's also a problem of access to capital markets. Right. So if you do not have a certain size, then you have limited access to the capital markets, and you can't bridge crisis like now.
I see. And New York also, we had the discussion about it, has been quite innovative in Europe, because we don't know so many operators who open co-working spaces in shopping centers. We have seen that in the US, for instance. Some shopping malls have co-working spaces. You did that in Ukraine with a mixed experience, or mixed feelings about that experience. But can you tell us a little bit about it, and also your vision about?
I would do more of the stuff, but that has mostly to do. Ukraine itself has a specific rules of the game, so they're not used for long-term leases, and they basically give you shell and core space, while the rest of the CEE countries are used for long-term games, so you can easily agree in 5 and 10 years, and you're usually getting a significant contribution from the landlord for the fit out. If you're fitting out a shopping space and convert it to workspace, you need easily, I don't know, 600 or 800 euros a square meter to do the job, and then to get your money back takes you 3 to 5 years. And then you start making money. That means you should have another 5 years to make profit, right? While you do that with a regular office space, you'll maybe only invest 200 euro on your own pocket. The rest comes from the landlord. You start making money after 1.5 years, and you have 8.5 years left. So this is a completely different game. Of course, the profit margin of IWG portfolio in Kiev was the highest in entire Europe before the crisis. That had to do that the rent came up from $10 to $25 in 18 months, right? But that's not normal, and nobody likes to have that in his portfolio itself. So we love to have the stability, the forecast, which comes along for 18 or 24 months, and these nervous markets up and down, that's not so much our favor. Sorry. When it comes to innovation, what we are currently working on is this space as a service. You can say, well, what's the innovation of that? Well, the thing is that we manage the properties on behalf of the owners. I would not say this is a facility management. This is more a tenant management. The entire shift of services goes towards hospitality in offices. There is this famous guy, Antonin Slumber, who is leading the PropTech wave. And he says real estate is not longer about real estate anymore. It's about selling services. And I truly believe that this is something you need to provide for the tenant to convince them to stay. And as the average lease term goes down from 5 years to 2 year or 1 year only now, while it was from 2008 from 10 to 5, now it goes from 5 to 3 to 1 to very short time. You need actively manage the tenant, or what we say, the client or the customers. And this is not what the real estate industry in general is prepared for. Right. And that's, I guess that's the niche. And then it comes PropTech with utilization sensors, energy saving sensors. It comes corporate shields now with hygienic stuff that they don't want to have the customers anymore in their space. They want to keep them out of the space because of this COVID stuff. So it comes much more management, conversation of common areas, this stuff. So it's more a bit development in the development for the sake of the client's confidence and experience.
Yeah, and so to come back on the shopping center experience, do you believe that we could have co-working spaces as you know something that should is as obvious as having a cinema theater, to have as you mentioned, a gym, having all this different experience in the same place, because as you mentioned, the economics of a shopping center is totally different than what we are used to see in the office market we are speaking. What's your vision on that?
Well, it's definitely a format which will pick up. It's not a moneymaker, but
Yeah.
it gives some frequency. It brings clients into the shopping mall, which usually do not be in the shopping mall, and customers from these clients as well. And it's an add value then for the operator of the gym and the cinema and the restaurant. We have to get used to the idea that, and I studied shopping center management, so every shopping center manager knows that it's not only the core tenant who brings in the frequency and the customer, it's also a few smaller clients or tenants who brings in different colorit of clients, and you have to just mix it in your tenant mix on the very first hand and say, okay, on the second floor, if there is no other usage, then you can foresee functional office space.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that on the very beginning, it's much more easier than to reconvert it from a shopping area towards the office space. And the problem in the shopping areas, it's very deep and you don't have natural light. So you need to have much more power in HVAC, ventilation, filter systems, all that stuff.
Okay.
So it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it will never be a main part of the usage, but a few percent of space, which usually otherwise would be dead.
Yeah.
It's good to have, I think so.
But you don't see a shopping centers because, as we mentioned, with the disruption of e-commerce, the retail industry being hit by everything, including the COVID, but also the way the behaviors are changing. You don't see shopping center becoming like almost office buildings, as some have claimed that it could happen.
I mean, the shopping center is an urban entertainment center, and it's all the three words. It's urban. It must be somewhere in the vicinity of where people are there. It can't be on the green field. And then it's entertainment factors as well, which we know are already more and more there. And then once you have the urban and the entertainment, you have a conflict of operation, because entertainment operates when shopping usually doesn't operate necessarily. So you have to be cautious how you do that, but you don't have the problem with office there, because office clients, yes, they want to have 24/7 access, but the main usage comes during the daytime, when the office space, or let's say the shopping center, is maybe not very crowded 9 to 3, right? And there are already people which are working there. And so I say from the management point of view of a shopping center, it's absolutely no problem. The only thing which you should take in consideration is that they will not pay €10 service charge.
Okay. Okay, great. We are arriving at the end. Is there something you want to share as a new work, a vision, or something you think is worth paying attention to from the industry perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as a brainstorming, we loudly think about cooperation with other operators in our size, that we maybe put together a network. I would not say a franchise, but maybe a network, you know, to provide the corporate clients a network all over Europe. With the same services and quality. That can be something. Of course, it's also true for the countries we are already in. It could be a trend, M&A trend, where we say, okay, that the smaller ones would not say getting eaten up by the bigger ones, but that it's a more a cooperation of network idea. What is basically also what IW2 is doing, that they say we do franchise in the future, right? We don't do it all on our own.
That's the main model now.
Yeah. So that can be something what I would say that's the next innovation, but we are in constant talks with investment banks, which are specialized also in the flex office sectors, and they do not see anything. No wave comes up now for the next 12 months because everybody waits how deep the crisis goes, and we have to be aware that this is the trigger. COVID is only a trigger; it's not the crisis itself. The recession comes due to COVID, and then nobody knows how long and deep that goes. But we are optimistic, so we think that by end of next year we are on the winner side, and until then, well, we do our best to let's say develop our products in a way which is user friendly and towards our clients' needs.
Awesome! Thank you so much for the great discussion, Hubert.
Thank you very much for your time.
So let's keep us posted about the next development for New Work, and see you soon then.
Thank you very much, John. Have a good day.
Yes.
Bye.